Are you ready to leave the US but not sure where to go? Well, if you have Europe on your mind, then tune in because today I'm going to talk about the best cities in Europe to move to if you're an American. If you're new here, my name is Cepee, rhymes with peppy, from SheHitRefresh.com. And I help women age 30 and over break free from a life of routine to move abroad or travel the world long term. I made the move from Texas to Spain in 2015 at the age of 35. I'm now 42 and still here loving my life. Give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any new videos about moving abroad or living abroad long term. So more and more Americans are seeking a new life overseas, whether that's for a few years of adventure or travel, or maybe for a permanent relocation or retirement. And Europe is one of the most popular destinations because there's just so much to enjoy here. You've got incredible history, a variety of cultures, proximity to other countries, affordable travel, modern public transportation, diversity of people, top-notch healthcare, safety, great quality of life, women's rights, and I could go on and on and on. What's not to love about Europe? Let me state that moving to Europe is totally possible, attainable, and realistic. Just check out my book, I'm Out of Here, an American's Ultimate Visa Guide to Living in Europe, where I highlight the 17 easiest countries to move to based on over 50 viable visa options. All right, so we've established that Europe is an amazing place to live, but Europe is huge. So with so many great choices of where to live within this continent, deciding on where to live in Europe requires a bit of research to know what all your options are and to know what the best country and city is for you. So if you're not sure where to start, I'm here to help. I'm gonna go over the 11 best cities to move to in Europe for Americans. This video is gonna be part 1, so I'm just gonna go over 5 cities, so make sure to check out part 2 to get the rest of the list, the next 6. So you may be wondering how I picked these cities. Well, I use the following factors here, and I'm going to mention some of these when I talk about the cities in just a minute. So some of the factors that make these cities the best places for Americans to move to are, number 1, I already mentioned, they are located in countries that have viable visa options. I also think about and looked at the cost of living. Is the cost of living comparable or less expensive than major US cities? I looked at healthcare. Is it affordable? Is there access to good healthcare? The language, is English widely spoken? That doesn't mean that you can only move to places where you have to speak English, but just took that in consideration. But of course, if you're moving somewhere, we highly encourage you to learn the local language. I also looked at community, other opportunities to meet other people, to build a sense of community there. The weather, I definitely took the weather into consideration. Is there an airport that can get you to where you need to go? And transportation, is it relatively easy to get around the city without a car? All right, and it's important to note that all of the cities that I'm going to talk about are places that you can actually move to based on viable visa options. So I know that a lot of cities in the Nordic countries make these lists of the best places to live in the world, best quality of life, but you know what? Those countries are not easy to move to for the average American and actually don't have viable visa options for you. So those cities from those countries did not make this list because if you can't get a visa, then you can't move there. And I don't want to waste your time. I just want to give you viable cities that you can actually move to. Okay, so before we dive into the list of the best cities in Europe for Americans to move to, I just want to give a shout out to Sharon B for leaving a comment on my video of how to find work abroad, 15 easy ways to get a job overseas. So Sharon says, definitely would be interested in a video on moving to France. Thank you so much, Sharon. I'm getting a lot of requests on videos for moving to France, so stay tuned. I'm gonna get that in the pipeline and I'll have one for you in the near future. If you'd like to give me a shout out, please leave your comment on this video. You can ask me a question or let me know where you're interested in moving to and maybe you'll be the next shout out that I give. All right, are you ready to learn about the best cities in Europe for Americans to move to? Let's get started. All right, the first city on the list here is Madrid, Spain. So if you're looking for a lively city with a cozy vibe, a lively social scene, and mild climate, then this is the city for you. So I may be biased because I did live in Madrid for 5 years, but I'm not alone in my love for Madrid. And you may be surprised to hear that more than 10,000 Americans live in this capital city, as well as thousands of foreigners from around the world. So like much of the world, rent prices in Madrid have been quickly quickly rising, but the city is still relatively affordable compared to other major European cities and cities in the US. Spanish salaries are low, but I will say that the likelihood of getting a job here is going to be very, very difficult. So if you come with your own job, you're going to have that foreign income, and so the cost of living here won't be that challenging. A good thing to know is that private healthcare is extremely affordable and can run as low as 45 euros a month. So when people think of Europe, they a lot of times think that everybody here is bilingual, trilingual, everyone speaks English, but you may be surprised to know that English is not widely spoken in Madrid. So with the exception of younger Spaniards who may speak some English, but they're going to be a little shy to speak it, you're going to need to learn Spanish to navigate living here, especially as you get settled. So don't expect people who work at banks or government agencies, telephone companies, or landlords to speak English. So start brushing up on your Spanish if you're interested in moving to Madrid, Spain. So people tend to think that Madrid and Spain as a whole is always sweltering hot. That might be true during the summer, but be prepared to experience all 4 seasons here. For me, a Texan living in Madrid, I have to say, honestly, the winters were a bit too long and cold for me, but if you're coming from anywhere that has a real winter, you'll be fine in the winter, and just be prepared for those hot summers that I love, but I know they can be hard for some people. So what I really loved about Madrid is its public transportation system. It's extensive and it's easy to use. The metro or its subway is really cheap, clean, and convenient. In addition to the subway, you're going to have access to buses that are going to fill in the gaps and take you anywhere that you need to go within the city. And then there's suburban trains that can take you comfortably to towns outside of the city center. But I would say the most efficient way, one of the best ways to get around the compact city center is just on foot. I loved exploring Madrid on foot and getting from place to place just with my own 2 feet. So that's just a little bit about Madrid. If you'd like to learn more about Spain, living in Spain, or Madrid, please check out our complete guide to living in Spain as an American expat. You can find the link below. And now I want to go on to our second city of the list here, which is also located in Spain, and that is Malaga, Spain. So Malaga is actually where I live now. I moved here after living in Madrid for 5 years, and I've been here for a year and a half. So Malaga is the birthplace of Pablo Picasso and Antonio Banderas, and it's a hotspot for expats and retirees. But don't let that fool you, because it's a lively metropolis on Spain's southern coast. So what I love about Malaga is that it's a medium-sized city, but the culture of the city is very active, and it's quite diverse for its size, attracting people from all over the world, mainly from Europe, but it still has an international flair, but it still keeps that Spanish culture. And of course, it's right here on the Costa del Sol, so you have beaches, endless beaches, all nearby that you can explore whenever you want. So like Madrid and many other places, Malaga also has felt the impact of rising housing costs. So this has been from a mix of things. You know, there's an influx of tourists here, expats, and also investors. All of that has negatively affected housing prices here, but a lot less than Madrid in the sense that it's still less expensive to live here, but it's no longer the bargain that it used to be. So if you like the heat, then Malaga is for you. It's actually June here right now, and I'm sweating a little bit as I'm recording this video. Malaga summers are hot and humid, and winters are almost non-existent. In fact, compared to other European cities of its size, it has one of the warmest winters. So the city is really well situated in the sense that you can explore all of southern Spain very easily from here. You can get to Córdoba, Sevilla, Granada, and like I said, explore all the beaches nearby. And also Spain's AVE, the long distance train, can get you to Madrid and even further to Barcelona. And of course, Malaga has a great international airport that makes it really easy to get in and out. And as I mentioned with Madrid, if you're interested in learning more about living in Spain, moving to Spain, learn a little bit more about Malaga, check out our complete guide to living in Spain as an American expat. You can find that link below. Okay, moving on to the third city on my list of the best cities in Europe for Americans to move to, and that is Lisbon, Portugal. Sometimes called the San Francisco of Europe for its hills, colorful trams, and red suspension bridge, Lisbon attracts a lot of digital nomads and young creatives with its art scene and low cost of living, although that has been changing very rapidly. It's also got a sparkling coastline, and it's claimed to fame as the sunniest capital city in Europe. This city will dazzle you with its history, and did you know it's actually the second oldest European capital? It has centuries old architecture, colorful Portuguese tiles, and what we love is that there's a liberal mindset in Portugal. Plus, it's on the coast. So Portugal is actually one of the cheapest countries in Western Europe, but as I mentioned, the price of accommodation has been skyrocketing. I guess the plus side is that expenses like utilities, food, transportation, and of course healthcare are highly affordable. So English is much more widely spoken in Portugal than in Spain, and it's a youthful city that attracts tons of expats, techies, digital nomads, and they all contribute to its vibrant community. Lots of people come to Portugal because it's one of the easiest countries in Europe to move to, given its viable visa options such as the D7 visa and its entrepreneurial visas. Be sure to check out my video on the 4 easiest countries to move to in Europe, because actually Portugal's in there as well as Spain, so you can learn a lot more about the visas and how to make that move there. So Lisbon has an inexpensive and well-connected transportation system of metros and buses, and the city is very walkable, but note that it is very hilly. So again, think San Francisco, but you can always hop on one of those famous yellow overground trams to give your legs a little break. And when it comes to the weather, Lisbon is pretty mild, but do expect some periods of cold. And I think the best part of Lisbon is that you get the atmosphere of a big city while also retaining that slower pace of a coastal town. So if you'd like to learn more about living in Portugal, moving to Portugal, and living in Lisbon, check out my complete guide to living in Portugal as an American expat, and you can find that link below. And that brings us to number 4 on our list here, and that is Berlin, Germany. I'll actually be there in a few weeks. Have you been before? Well, what's not to love about this creative, naturally hip, gritty, yet glamorous, historically rich city? Maybe it's winters? The city's diverse food and culture, along with its booming startup scene, has attracted entrepreneurs and talent from all over the world. So the downside to that is Berlin's popularity and gentrification have wiped out those famously low rent prices of the early 2000s. So while you can still live on less in Berlin compared to cities in the US, the cost of living is going to be more expensive than that of Spain and Portugal. In addition to housing prices, healthcare is also going to be more expensive in Berlin or in Germany compared to Spain and Portugal. Nothing compared to US system or prices, but expect to pay a few €100 a month. So I love Berlin for its diversity. And when it comes to making friends, there are just endless options for community and finding your people there. As I mentioned, the city has become a prominent city for startups and for tech companies. So if you're actually a techie and looking for a job, while it is very difficult to get a job in Europe as an American, this may be a place that you can look into because you may have an opportunity. So while that work visa though is still challenging, why I love Berlin or why I love Germany is that it offers an array of viable visa options to live there long term. And one of my favorites, or probably my favorite, is being the freelance visa. Again, check out my video on the 4 easiest countries to move to in Europe. I talk a bit more about this visa there. So when it comes to languages though, German is a difficult language to learn, but thankfully English is widely spoken in Berlin. So getting around on English won't be too hard, but we always suggest if you're gonna live somewhere long term to try to learn the local language as well. Now Berlin is more of a sprawling city than Lisbon and Madrid and Malaga, but it's well connected by subway, bus, tram, suburban trains, bikes. There's so many ways to get around this beautiful city. In terms of weather though, winter is gonna be a tough season. There's very little sunshine and the temperatures get extremely low. So come prepared and bundle up to spend a winter in Berlin. If you're interested in learning more about Germany, Berlin, also check out my ultimate guide to living in Germany as an expat, American expat, and you can find that link with the Spain Ultimate Guide and Portugal Ultimate Guide below. All right, and we've made it to the end of this list of the best cities in Europe for Americans to move to, and that is Amsterdam in the Netherlands. So let me just start by saying the Netherlands is one of the most egalitarian countries in Europe, and it's a really welcoming country and relatively an easy transition for an American. And what I love about it is that it offers a really special residency opportunity just for Americans called the DAFT permit or the DAFT visa. So if you have a business idea, this may be the visa for you. Again, check out my video on the 4 easiest countries to move to in Europe. I talk more about the DAFT there, but let's talk about Amsterdam. So definitely the most popular city in the Netherlands to move to is Amsterdam. It's a small but mighty city with so much to offer. Its scenic backdrop, those canals, the historic center, cultural diversity, and of course, its progressive society. Like Berlin, it's an international city that has attracted talent from all over the world. There's a lot of global companies that are headquartered there. In addition to all the tech stuff and work, you can also enjoy the green parks, the many green parks that the city has when the weather is nice, but also when it is gray or maybe raining. Socialize socializing and cozy cafes and restaurants are a great alternative as well. So living in Amsterdam has so many perks, but do note that it is one of the most expensive cities in Western Europe, especially the rising housing costs as well. But luckily though, healthcare is affordable, which will be about 100 euros a month. In terms of languages, everybody speaks English. Everybody is bilingual there, which is great, but on the downside, it leaves really little incentive to learn Dutch. So I would highly recommend at least just learning a few words if you're planning on moving there, but you won't really need Dutch with everyone speaking English fluently. It'll really blow your mind. All right, let's talk about weather. When it comes to weather, expect to experience all 4 seasons, and that could actually happen within a day. Be prepared for that. Rain, wind, and cold. Getting around the city is fairly easy, and cycling is the most popular way to explore and get from point A to point B. But if that's not your thing, the city is really well connected with train, trams, and subways. And of course, if you'd love to learn more about living in the Netherlands and more about Amsterdam, check out my complete guide to be an American expat in the Netherlands. You can find that link below, along with Germany, Portugal, and Spain. All right, we have made it through the list, and I just want to remind you that making a move to Europe is totally possible. I've just gone over the 5 best cities in Europe for Americans to move to, and if you want more, stay tuned for part 2, where I'm going to go over 6 more cities that are a great fit for Americans, and I'm confident that your ideal home in Europe is out there. Just going to remind you of a few other resources if you're ready to move. Please check out my book, I'm Out of Here, An American's Ultimate Visa Guide to Living in Europe. Again, I go over the 17 easiest countries to move to and give you over 50 viable visa options. I include the 4 countries that we just went over and these 5 cities. And if you're a woman age 30 and over, please join my Facebook group where you can meet thousands of other women who are looking to move abroad. You're going to find inspiration, resources, and a lot of support there. And last, if you enjoyed this video, give me a like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and don't miss any future Move Abroad content.